back. Back to back to back. I don't know. I threw an extra back to back. But we've gotten into these overtime games. Trying to figure out how to close them out. Trying to figure out how to take that next step. Playing against veteran teams high expectations for the season. What we got to do is figure out how to assert our will, even though we're the youngest team on the court. And that's what we saw tonight, bro. That's what we saw tonight.
And I'm just going back and I'm seeing, what we learned against the Nuggets, we were able to execute against the Bulls. And the Nuggets game was a hard game. I mean, let's just be honest. We got to that point where we were able to get into that overtime, which was crazy. But the reality is we got a chance to win with Shea, the ball in his hands with a few seconds left. He gets to the hole. I felt like there was contact made. Obviously, there's other people saying stuff, but I felt like there was contact made. Should have been called a foul. But here we are. I feel pretty good about this. Shea hit three free throws to put us in that position in the first place. Man, it was just a crazy last 2 minutes of the game. We were cruising ahead most of the game, and bam, that fourth quarter hit in the last 3-4 minutes. The Bulls came running back, and it was just a hell of a game.
Yeah, it was crazy, man. It was crazy. Oh, there we go. Sorry about that. My audio was going wild there. But what I'd say, bro, is we had a huge opportunity to blow this. And so as much as we won the game, I would say that the Bulls didn't close it out to their highest potential. And why that matters is we don't want to look at it and be like, well, we won, so everything we did was good. Like, we did win, but there was some young player mistakes in this game. I don't look, Dort
Learnable mistakes.
Learnable mistakes, but like Dort went back-to-back bonehead plays in overtime, right? Now, he played incredible defense on DeRozan. He made DeRozan work hard. And when he wasn't on DeRozan got open shots. So you can't be like, oh, Dort's game was bad. But in the end, for us to take the next step against an elite team, we have to clean that up. So, yes, we won the game, but it reminded me a bit of the Milwaukee game where we had a chance. We were going to be up by 3, and then that goaltending followed by immediately fouling DeRozan, and I just felt like that right there is an opportunity. We also, like you said, Shea had a shot to win it in regulation. He got to where he wanted. The shot wasn't a clean look, but learning opportunities, and also you come out with a win. So we get all the good vibes, all the good energy. This was one of the best games of the year because of the win. But so was the game against the Nuggets when we got the loss. Like,
absolutely.
We have to look at it and be like, we want to win the games, but outside of winning, what would we say equals a good, a valuable game, a learning experience? What is a good game? And you say overtime against a veteran team, we'll take that every time. You come out with a win, that's the cherry on top. But you can't be like, oh, it was a bad game just because we lost an overtime game. Like, we might have lost it even in an ugly way, but it doesn't mean it's bad. Like, these are learning opportunities. You say it, and I believe it, bro, but you say you want to be playing big, meaningful games at the end of the season. And what's happening right now is we're playing meaningful games now. And we're about to enter December. That's important, because if you're going to get to the point where you're playing meaningful games at the end of the season in the hunt for the playoffs or, whatnot, you got to do it now.
Yeah, and let's go ahead and take a minute and talk about the game last night. Let's break down one of the things that we've been talking about a lot is our bench. We've said a lot that we need production out of our bench to stay in these games because it's one of our strengths. Last night we scored 48 points from our bench. Baisley led the way with 17 points in 20 minutes.
Big time.
2 blocks, 3 rebounds, 2 for 4 from 3-pointers. Like, man, there was even a block shot that I felt like it shouldn't have been called a goaltending, but it was. And Baisley was out there doing all these amazing things last night. JRE, big night. 20 minutes, 10 points. He had 2 steals, 3 rebounds, one of which was offensive. Kenny Hustle, 33 minutes last night, man. He was all over the place. He was back to his Kenny Hustle ways. 8 points, 2 steals, 2 assists, 5 rebounds, 3 of which were offensive. Man, he was everywhere. That's the type of player we need in the minutes that we need from Kenny Hustle to get out there and just go balls to the wall, for that 33 minutes that he was there. Trey Mann, 13 minutes, 5 points, 3 assists, 3 rebounds, 1 for 3 and 3-pointers, and 2 for 5 on field goals. And last but not least, Isaiah Joe. Now, before I talk about Isaiah Joe just broke an Oklahoma City Thunder record. He hit 9 threes in a row. If you guys did not see the game prior to this game, which was the game against Denver, he came into the game and went 0 for 3 in the first 3 shots from 3-point range, and then hit 7 in a row. Okay, guys? He shot 70% from 3-point range against Denver, and then he comes into this game, and the first 2 3-point shots he hits, so he hit 9 3-pointers in a row. That is a record for the Oklahoma City Thunder, which was prior held, I don't know by who, but it was 8, and it was in 2012 that was set. So just a great job by Isaiah Joe to be out there doing what he's doing. He had 8 points, 2 for 6 and 3-pointers, and 2 rebounds. But this team together on that unit, that second unit, really gave the Bulls a hard time. And it's the reason we were able to stay in the game like this. And it's going to be continuously the reason why we stay in games, because those were big minutes by Baisley and JRE and Kenny Hustle to allow Dort, Shea, and Giddey to get off that floor. Poku, all these guys played really well, but the reality is that bench really led us last night.
Yeah, and Baisley, I feel like we're in a strange spot right now where if you support Baisley, you're almost being accused of being a Baisley apologist. But games like this show what he's capable of. But even in a game like this, he had some plays that just were like, oh man, take the easy pass. You don't have to go up in that spot. Different things like that. But that's part of his maturation. He's going to study the film. But when he plays like this, an overtime game, 17 points, he's a critical part of the win. And it wasn't like we were getting a ton of production from any singular player off the bench. We got good minutes from everybody, but he was the leader of that bench unit. And it started on the defensive end for him. And then he started knocking down shots, and then, things were rolling. The game overall started as ugly as any game this season. We left the fans standing up for a few minutes, to say the least, including a timeout, right? And then we just did what we do, which is once we got going.
Dedication by them fans, man.
Yeah, it is. Once we got on a roll, bro, it was like, all right, here we go. We snatched the lead. By the time the second quarter rolled around, and then it was back and forth for a minute before we just kind of like took the lead and held on to it. And it was like, started to feel like, okay, midway through the fourth quarter, if we blow this game, right, that's how it's going to feel. Even though early on it didn't have that sense. It was like we were getting blown out. It felt like. Then when the Bulls took the lead in the fourth quarter, I felt like, here we go again. We've seen this script before. We had a chance, and then team just says, okay, we're gonna really turn on the Jets and beat you. But it didn't happen. We were able to get into
What happened?
What happened? We got critical stops, and we were able to play with the lead or have the ball when the game was tied versus the flip that way around, I think. But what do you think?
Man, when the shit hit the fan, Coach D called timeout, gathered the troops. He took some of his assistant coaches into the side. I was watching it, and he's talking to his assistant coaches, letting his players talk amongst each other, trying to figure it out. There's a couple of assistant coaches that were with the players, but then all of a sudden it was the change. He comes into the huddle, everybody's quiet, everybody's looking at him. He focuses everybody, and they go out there and they get a crucial stop. They get a crucial, three-pointer in there by Poku, and it was like bang, 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 bang. And I was like, okay, we're good. That's what we need from our coaches. We need that moment where, every coach is we've all been there. If you're a coach, you know what exactly this moment I'm about to tell you is that there's moments that you call timeout when it's the game's close and your guys are just, flailing out there. And you're like, what are you guys doing out there? Get your shit together, right? And there's moments that you were like, okay, this is a learning moment. I'm going to let these guys play through it. We've seen Coach D let the guys play through it. It's worked out. But today, he called timeout. He could recognize things weren't right. He could recognize that there was a couple guys that were blaming each other for the bonehead players or whatever you want to call it. He called timeout, helped them get focused, went back out there. In the last 3 minutes, we were able to keep that score close, because the reality was when they came back out in that last 4 minutes of the game and they just put a whoop on. I mean, we're up by like 12 at one point, Mark, and they just came out and they just, put the metal to the pedal. And next thing you know is we're sitting there going, okay, now we just need this in order to be able to pull this off. And we saw it. We saw Poku hit big shots. We saw Shea hit big shots. We saw Giddey get to the hole. That time he got to the hole in the game was, and I think it was overtime. Crossover, boom, 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 and went straight to the hole. It was like, holy shit. That is spectacular. The way he was able to do that was truly spectacular. And, I have a lot of love and appreciation for the guys over in the Bulls. We've seen Coach Donovan over there, coaches for a few years. And I still say to this day, and I've told a lot of people this, is if we were to get a veteran player out there, there's only one veteran I would want that would fit our scheme, and he would fit the type of defense we have, and that's DeRozan. He's the perfect type of caliber of player. He doesn't take a lot of threes. He drives to the hole really, really hard. He's the perfect type of veteran that we could add to this team. So I have a lot of love for that squad there. And you know what? I mean, they're 8-11 like us, and that's pretty good in the East right now. So I feel like it's kind of fun to watch.
Yeah, for sure. And I've been saying it, bro. We're getting ready to turn it on and start winning some games. And we made some mistakes on the stretch. We've already talked about that. But we're playing against the Bulls, and Levine was having a good game. And when he's having a good game, they're tough to beat. DeRozan was having a good game, and he was really heating up in the fourth. And if you've been watching the NBA, over the last, I want to say like 14 years, but specifically, the last 5 years, DeRozan really dominates the fourth quarter. So as much as we were like, well, this team is going to let the game slip from their hands, it also felt like this is what the Bulls do. This is how they close games. This is what they're known. I understand they're not having the best season right now. Yeah. But at the same time, this felt like what they needed. They needed a game against a team like us, be able to lean on DeRozan and Levine, and then just close us out and get onto that run last year where I think they won 8, 10, 12 games in a row. Big shots by DeRozan all the way through that fourth quarter. A couple of buzzer beaters in a row. I remember that. But for us, overcoming these types of games, it's a good sign. But also seeing the growth opportunities, and then can we string a few games together? Everybody understands one of the biggest struggles of a young team is consistency. That is the biggest struggle. But I feel like we're about to break through. And I've been saying that for a bit now, but all the signs to me point to that, because we're playing teams with very, very good veteran squads. Now we have to find a way to start well, play the game. But I think we're about to start seeing wins by 10, 15, 20 points, because that's how you get on to that point where you're winning 10 games in a row. You got to win a few easy ones and then win a few close ones. And the next thing you know, it feels like you can't lose. And we're going to be there this year, sometime soon, as long as we stay healthy. But sometimes we've seen really good teams get on rolls when their best player goes down for a few games. So we don't know when it will be, but we're close.
And I want to echo exactly what you're saying. Is I've noticed that there's been a shift in the way that referees been reffing Shea out there. They're giving him calls, a lot of calls. Because of that, you can see this respect level from the referees. And you're like, the referees' respect level doesn't mean... No, it means everything. Because if a referee respects you, they respect your game, they understand that you're an all-star, they're going to give you the benefit of a call when you go to the hole and it's a 50-50 call. And that's what matters. That's what matters when we're seeing Shea get to the line 15 times. And last game he gets to the line, 12 or 14 times. He's getting double digits every single time. And that's what we need. We need Shea to attack this hole. We need Shea to get to the free throw line in order for us to be successful. Because if you look at Shea, he was 8 for 21, 30 points, 14 for 15 from the free throw line. Okay, he scored half of his points almost from the free throw line. That's what we need from Shea. We saw it with Russ. Russ was so good with it. We saw it with James Harden when he played for the Rockets. Get into the free throw line, it adds something to the game. And the refs aren't calling all these, tap fouls like they used to call. So it's even more important, it's even more valuable when you have a player like Shea that's getting to the free throw line as much as he is, because it stops the game, it helps us reset, it slows everything down, it keeps our legs rested for that fourth quarter. So again, this is respect level, and it's all going to start going hand in hand because, again, the last 3 minutes of the game, if your star player is getting all the calls, right, that's it. You know, we saw it happen last year with Ja'a. You know, all these calls are coming out of nowhere when he would get to the hole. And you're like, why did he get to the hole? Why did he get to the free throw line that many times? It's because when a referee respects your game, respects you, they start calling and in favor for you. So, again, big moments by Shea. Last night, his 30 points and 7 assists, 8 rebounds. It seems like a typical stat for him right now, and it's not typical. Those are crazy numbers for anybody to be in the NBA. And it's crazy how normalized he's made those numbers look.
Yeah, and we're at a spot, man, it's just been a lot of fun. This season's been really special, watching this young team improve and come a long way. But now we're starting to grit out some wins.
Dude,
we're starting to see the team's confidence build. Yeah.
Tell me about Giddey last night, man. Tell me about Giddey.
You know, I think the first half, I wouldn't say he particularly had a bad half, but I felt like he came out in that fourth quarter, in that overtime, saying like, nothing that happened up to now matters. I'm going to see what I can do to influence the game. And when he's committed to getting an offensive rebound, his timing is unbelievable. And he has this mentality, I would say, a bit like Chris Paul's rip-through move, where he only uses it when the team's in the bonus. Like, Giddey could put a lot of pressure on the offensive glass, you know, the entire game. But he really picks and chooses his spots. And when he does, teams are really unprepared for it. And I'd say there's a couple of things you can do in a game to really make a mark on it. Sometimes you're going to put up a SGA-like stat line. Sometimes you'll be like Dort and you'll do it on the defensive end. But if you are an opportunistic and timely offensive rebounder, like, you're going to have games where people are just like, yeah, like, that person was a huge problem and we didn't account for them. And then they really dominated the game in this one particular way. And the power of offensive rebounding is, if you do it properly, you can just shoot till you make it. And then the other team looks back and they're like, well, that's the one stat that we feel like we could have done better at, and that's why we lost the game. So that's why I think, like with Giddey, he just has to stay engaged and find a way to, you know, continue to impact the game. A lot of times that's going to be passing. Early on, you know, his little runners and his finishing at the basket, it just wasn't going down. And there's a tendency for us as fans to be like, oh, those are easy shots because they're close to the rim. But there's a difference between an easy shot and a shot that's close to the rim. And sometimes some of the hardest shots, you know, are when you're going against people who put the right type of defense on you, and you're kind of trying to find the basket. You're really close to it. You got to put the right spin on it. But, I mean, for me, you get a win like this, and everybody's going to be looking at, like, how did I positively impact the game? And then it doesn't matter he was one, you know, assist shy of a triple-double. I think, I don't know if he actually got it, but
yeah, one assist.
And then, you know, even if he got a triple-double, would he be like, oh, that was a great game? Like, you can have a triple-double and not particularly have a good game. Really, it comes down to the win and the loss. And that's what you like when you see a team player. You can tell, like, he would get no satisfaction out of a loss and a triple-double. But a win, one assist shy, doesn't mean anything less to him.
I just want to say is, I feel like I've been wrong about Josh. I've said sometimes that I don't think that he's going to average 20 points a game or anything else like that. That's where I feel like I've been wrong, because I feel like Josh can do that. And watching him and his efficiency. Now, people are like, oh, he only had 10 points and he was 5 for 13, but Shea was 8 for 21. What's the difference in their game? What was the difference in what they did? Because if Shea had 8 more shots, I guarantee he hit 3 of them. What was the difference in the game?
I think
it was the
Shea was 13
line.
For 14 from the free throw line.
14 for 15 at the free throw line, you're right.
Right, and Dort,
that's the difference.
And Dort, if you want to look at, like, Giddey and be like, well, will Giddey get that? Well, I would say Dort wasn't naturally a guy who went out there and drew a lot of fouls, but he went 7 for 8 from the free throw line, I think. So in the end,
he's going to learn. It's part of the game.
And
And I think that's why when people are like, oh, well, Josh Giddey will never be a 20-point player a night. That's where I disagree, because he's shown you that he can score consistently 10 points by any given night by getting, to the hole and taking easy shots. All he's got to do now is figure out how to get, fouled 5 times going to the hole. That's it. He will get those free throws, and when he gets those free throws, it's going to be a 20-point player a night. And it's going to be a problem for teams because he's so tall, he's so lanky. Every single time he's getting to the hole right now, he's getting bumped. He's getting hit. He's just not getting the calls. And that's why you see him. He's always frustrated with the refs because he's getting out there and he's getting hit hard. But these guys are so much shorter than him, the refs aren't calling it. And, it's kind of like that Aaron Judge mentality of like Aaron Judge strikes out so much below the knees, and it's not a strikeout. But the reality is they call it a strikeout because that's the typical person and where the box is at. It's the same thing with Giddey, man. People are starting to figure out that this guy can do all the things that he needs to. 5 for 13. He's doing these numbers that are good. Like, I get it. People are going to say 5 for 13 is not great, but it is, though. It is for a rookie because he's getting out there and doing great things. And Dort's out there 2 for 8. All right. Now we're starting to see where the shots are being expected from. Okay. Listen, Coach D does this on purpose. All right. You look through this lineup. There's not one player that took more than 9 shots off of our bench. Okay. That's it. Okay. You look at here, 21 shots by Shea, more because of free throws and getting to the line. All right. Josh Giddey, 13. Poku, 13. Okay. These are on purpose. He wants Poku. He wants Shea. He wants Josh Giddey to take 13 plus shots a game. Like, that's his goal. Well, okay, so then you look at it and say, well, why is that his goal? Well, let me just tell you why it's his goal. Because he sees these guys as being the foundation block to the future. The more shots these guys get, the more talent they understand, the more they realize where they're going. You have to get these guys as many shots as possible. Poku and Josh Giddey are foundation blocks to this team. And I don't care what people want to say. People can disagree with me all they want. And you guys can fuck off if you disagree, first of all. Because if you look at Josh Giddey and you look at Poku, these guys are massive. And if you guys don't think that these guys aren't going to change the game for the Oklahoma City Thunder, you have not been watching, period. Poku
They're already doing it.
Is next level, guys. And I understand that people aren't understanding that, but we have a few friends that are inside of the front office to a couple different teams, okay? The way that people are talking about Poku is as if he is the next player coming up that's truly spectacular that nobody truly knows about. But we know about him because we've been watching him for 3 years. But everybody else is like, who is this geeky-looking kid that's coming out and dominating us, right? And then you got Josh Giddey out there doing the same thing. But Josh Giddey's in year 2 doing the same things and expected out of somebody that's a year 3 player. And that's why we love what we're seeing with this team, is the expectations of each of these players, the shot selections of each of these players, and the way that Coach D controls each one of those. And I love it, man.
Yeah, Poku's looking really good. And anybody who was patient with Poku, anybody who hung on to their Poku jersey, anybody who just really stuck with him, like, they're getting a really awesome player right now. People who gave up on him still can't quite see what he's doing out there. So they'll come around.
Man, we sent out a bunch of jerseys in the beginning when we first started this podcast,
Yeah.
And we had one of our listeners that says, tell me what jersey I should get of all the players.
Right.
And I was like, you need to get a Poku jersey.
Yeah.
And he's like, what? And I'm like, seriously, Poku's going to be one of those guys that we're going to look at for a long time as huge. And it's because we love this team, and then we see the best in each one of these players, Like, we look at these players like we look at our nephews sometimes. And hey, like, shit happens, but we'll have a next game, and that's why we're here. That's why we're here, is we want you guys to understand as well, is that there's a positive way of looking at this game. And every single time that I listen to a different podcast or read something from a different person, it's always like, this team's really good at this. Oh, but, like, we need a trade here. We need this. We need that. We don't need Shea taking these shots. We don't need Dort taking these shots. Dort shouldn't be taking 4 3-pointers. And we're looking at it saying, but this team is still developing. If this team was in their 28, 29 stage, then yeah, you don't want those guys taking that shot. But that's not where this team's at. They're still learning what their gauges are. And one day, when Dort's 28, we might want him taking that shot. But the only way we'll find out that way is by him taking that shot now. And that's what we're trying to educate with people, is that there's two ways of looking at it. There's the negative way and there's a positive way. And what we saw last night and the night before, or the 2 nights before, that's positive to us, man.
Yeah.
Like, this is all positive. Like, you could stream it out and say, oh, well, this player should be playing more and Isaiah Joe shouldn't have done this. And listen, this team has made so much headway in the last, 19 games of the season. Seriously, guys, we're 8-11. Like, Mark and I talked about this. Like, we wanted to be someplace around 500 after Christmas. That's where we're looking at, guys. We got that opportunity to do so.
Yeah.
And it feels so good because guess what? We're watching meaningful minutes right now. I mean, I was glued to my phone at 11 o'clock last night, Eastern time, right? Just waiting for this game. I was like, oh my God, come on. I was on the edge of my fucking seat.
Yeah.
And that's what this has done to me. It's created that passion this season more so than I remembered in a long time. I mean, I've always been passionate about the Thunder. But this year, man, and if you haven't been watching and you only been listening to podcasts about it, you're starting to hear that rumble. Playoffs? Right?
Yeah.
But we've been saying it all along. That's what's exciting about what's happening at this moment, is it's all looking like it's going to click.
And you mentioned Giddey's, potential to average 20. And I want to push that a little further. Since you finally come around on that, let's push it a little bit further, okay? My theory is Giddey can average 25 a game. And here's how, okay? You already proved where if he can start getting to the free throw line on a regular basis, right? Now, to get to the free throw line on a regular basis, you have to do a couple of things, earn respect with the officials. You have to earn respect with the defenders so that they close out on you and things like that. But,
sure.
Okay, if you were to say, Shea, he's averaging like 38% from three this year. Dort, even though his percentage isn't high, when his shot is clicking, you can see potential. There's no doubt about that. You look at Poku. You're looking at the same thing. You're like, these players are coming along. There's improvement, right? Now, we haven't seen the same thing with Giddey, except we've seen his form improve, like his confidence improve, his willingness to take the shots. But you can look at him and be like, well, he's not going to improve. And I think that's very unlikely. I think you look at how much Dort's improved, and he was naturally going to have to work really hard to earn like any respect after the way that the Houston Rockets treated him in that playoff series. Like the whole league was like, okay, that's how you treat Dort. You don't even close out on him. But he's earned respect, and I think Giddey offensively was more advanced than Dort when he entered the league, and younger at the same time. So I do think Giddey's going to figure out his three-point shooting. I think his commitment to shoot the ball, even though the people around him, like the fans or the other team, they might disrespect him. Like, that's what Dort had to do. Dort had to first be committed to shoot the ball, and then he overcame his own personal demons, and then now he shoots the ball very freely. Now, Giddey still has other things he does, better, but he's shown the ability to finish at the basket, okay? He's shown the ability to finish in the mid-range game. So if he unleashes that three-point weapon and also gets to the free throw line with regularity, then we're going to talk about a 25-point score. If he just gets to the free throw line regularly, then he's going to be a 20-point scorer. So I don't think it's unreasonable to think he could knock down a couple three-pointers a game. And then if you're looking at it and it's like, well, he's a 23, 24-year-old player, potentially. He's averaging 25 points a game, 9 assists, 9 rebounds, something like that. Really, entering his prime, he could be anything he wants to be. He could be, he could go out and average 36 points, but that's not his style. He could go out and average 15 assists, or he could just have like a well-rounded career in his prime where he's putting up 28, 12, and 9 or 10 every single year, and eclipsing all the, the records. Now, as far as like triple doubles, but like the question is, people will say, well, I don't see that offensive potential in him. And I would just say, like, yeah, his shot looks a little bit like unconventional. We're not really used to the way that he lets the ball go, but I would say the same thing about Shea. And if you were to say last year or even 2 years ago, Shea would be flirting with a 40%, 3-point range, that would be kind of hard to believe then. While, that it would happen so fast. So I think we have to give Giddey that same space to improve, because you can tell within the Oklahoma City Thunder, like, coaching staff, the players, and especially with him, like, they're encouraging him to shoot that shot with regularity. There's no question. There's no, like, don't shoot it. There's no, you're getting benched for shooting it. They want him to develop that shot. Then he's a 3-level scorer with, incredible passing weapons who can get downhill and just be the ultimate type of playmaker that this NBA really loves.
I love the way that Josh Giddey's game flows like his hair does. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's effortless. There's moments that you look at like, oh, that's rough. Like getting to the hole, and then the player gets in front of him and they try, there's moments like that that's like, okay, he needs X move, which all the coaches know, as well. He needs a crossover here, he needs a crossover there. But then all of a sudden he puts it together, like in that overtime, and that move that he got to the bucket and for the layup. It's like, holy shit. Like, he's so close. He's so stinking close. It's like, to me, it's getting to that point where we're seeing all these players and they're like, oh, that guy's getting close. Ooh, this guy's getting close, right? But that's what happens as they get time under their belt, whether it's Jalen Williams, J-Dub, whether it's Poku or Dort or Shea, Giddey, Baisley. As they're getting more minutes, you're starting to see what they're really expected out of. The coaches are really expecting out of them, because the coaches are really good about putting these players against guys that they can have success against. And I love the way that coach substitute these guys. And you look at our bench, 20 minutes, 33, 13 and 15. I love seeing this. This is important because it's getting our starters rest, and you look at Shea led our minutes last night. He had 40. Okay. They had 3 players that had 40 or more minutes than Shea last night. 3 players, right? Mm-hmm. It's crazy to me that we have all these players that are getting serious rest. 5 to 7 minutes is a lot of rest extra every single game. And you're seeing that with Shea. You're seeing that with Josh. And it's giving them time to put the minutes out there and then giving them time to rest. Because we all know when you're young, all right, and you're out there, you're busting your balls and busting up down the court, you get so tired, right? And you don't realize that other gear is there. Like we see with Shea. I'm tired, right? Then you make silly plays or a lazy play or whatever type of play because your exhaustion level is high. What we're seeing here with Coach is that he's not letting these guys get to that moment. He's not letting Baisley get so tired that he makes this lazy pass or he doesn't get back on defense, right? He's not letting J-Dub get unuseful minutes out there. He's out there playing against the positions and the guys that he needs to play out there against. You're watching Poku play against all the centers in the league right now. And he's doing some amazing things. Yes, he's running up against them once in a while, but I mean, look what he did against whatever his name is for the Bulls. He's one of those players that can put up 25, 26
Vucevic.
points and Vucevic, and 15 rebounds. But Poku gave him such trouble last night, and Poku was able to get up on him essentially and just ride him like a bull. And Poku had 15 points. Vucevic had 13 points.
Ride that.
It's just the way it went last night, man. And it's just so great to see how these guys are all working together. But, yeah, when you're saying that this guy and that guy could average 25 points, like, you're right. Like, the way that we develop these players, sometimes it takes a couple extra years to get them to that level. But that's okay because that means their peak will last longer. And I think that's the great thing about it is that each one of these guys we're watching are getting meaningful minutes. People have started talking about Isaiah Joe being better than Trey, man. I hate that fucking shit, first of all, because I hate when we're comparing players inside of our organization because you have a player that's 21 or 22 and Trey, man, and Isaiah Joe's got a couple years on it. You know? Like,
right.
Don't be comparing those players. Like, there's no reason to. It's like comparing your big toe and little toe. Like, why the fuck would you do that shit?
You
doesn't
don't
make
need to do that
sense.
shit. No, because it's not fair. But here's the thing with Isaiah Joe. If you look at him and say, what does he bring to the table, right? And then you say, Trey Mann, what does he bring to the table? Like, I understand that there's an obsession with, like, three-point shooting. And you're like, oh, okay, one is better than the other in that one category. And Isaiah Joe hit 9 in a row. So people are going to be like, damn, that was one of the all-time great hot streaks we've ever witnessed, right? But here's the deal. What Trey Mann brings to the table defensively is different than Isaiah Joe. Isaiah Joe has been taking timely charges, so it's not like he's not out there doing things. But coach is taking all of these things into account. And we saw a couple of games ago Kenny Williams start and really have one of his least productive games of the season. And that, look, starting is different. It's a different mentality. But you mentioned, like, hey, coach gives him time to like rest, but also time to really plan how they want to make an impact. Mm-hmm. And
you're right.
When Kenny was out there last night, bro, he made the difference. There was 2 times where the Bulls secured the rebound and were getting ready to start. It wasn't even a fast break, right? There wasn't even like this intention to be aggressive by the Bulls. It was just like begin to set their offense up. And when they made the outlet pass, Kenny just took it away.
Crazy, man.
And then more moments too, where just impacting the game.
I talked about old Kenny Hustle because sometimes, like, I feel like Kenny Hustle, we're playing against a team that's all balls to the wall like Kenny Hustle is. You don't see his impact as much. But a team like the Bulls that are a little slower, a little bit more, I guess you could say, lazy, you see him making a massive, massive impact because Kenny Hustle, again, if he's the hardest working guy out there, he's going to be getting some crazy stuff. And that's what we saw last night. That was 33 minutes of just Kenny Hustle straight up fucking balls to the wall.
Right, because once he begins to make an impact the way that he likes to make an impact, then you can just let him keep playing. But if he's not making an impact, then letting the next guy up try to make that impact. And that's why sometimes it's going to be Isaiah Joe, sometimes it's going to be Trey Mann, sometimes it's going to be Kenny Hustle, sometimes it's going to be Baisley, sometimes it's going to be both.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's going to be neither. And that is, I would say, when you're talking about what we're watching this year that's truly unique and truly special, as much as watching young players, the youngest team in the NBA lead the league in, points in the paint and also defend at a high level, take these really good teams over time, start to learn how to win. That's all fun. But we're also watching a complete innovation of what rotations look like in the NBA. And
it's crazy.
Really try to get, because we're not even seeing Jang back in it. I know he's going to work his way back into the rotations. Like, there's going to be an intention to play 14 or 15 different guys throughout the year who feel like they've made it into the rotation and can make an impact on the team. When you get to the playing game, if you have the chance to make it to the playoffs, there's a good chance 2 or 3 or more of those guys will be unavailable because it's an 82-game season and shit just happens, right? And on top of that, coach will still have a chance to be like, which guys are making the biggest impact? Run out at least a 10-man rotation while the other teams are just running on fumes trying to get into the play-in situation or to get into the playoffs. We could be really accelerating and finding a new gear. And if we can find a way to get into the playoffs, I think there would be, we've talked about this, a 7-game series with a rotation like what we're working on.
Yep.
We haven't seen it, but there's reason to believe that as you entered Game 6, where teams traditionally are really starting to feel it in their legs, you could be running out fresh players that you have a lot of trust in and could really impact the series.
Yeah, and man, I've been saying this, and we've talked about this in prior episodes, that the Oklahoma City Thunder are running the G League like a AAA affiliation in baseball. If you guys aren't familiar with baseball and the sports, they have like AAA, AA, single A, and they have lower A baseball. And in order to get to the major leagues, it's very much like soccer. You have to go through all these different levels to get to that, the top level. Anyways, so Major League Baseball, they have this beautiful system of young guys taking, 3-4 years through the systems in order to get to the major leagues. And I've said this about these guys before, is that Jalen Williams and J-Dub, in my opinion, is the last first round pick that we're going to have that doesn't spend a significant amount of time into the G League. I think the rest of the guys from this point on, and that's including, Jalen Williams, the other Jalen Williams, J Will, and Usman Jang, any of our picks that are coming are going to have to go through the G League for the at least first half of the season. It's going to be required in the aspect of, you'll see them in the beginning part of the season because the G League hasn't started yet. And then it'll be like, oh, G League's up and going. Here we go. These players need to go play there because their minutes need to be maximized at that rookie year. I love how it's being done. I love the fact that we have our team in structure. So we go to a player that essentially listen, we want you to play on our team, right? But if you don't want to be drafted by us by recognizing that you're going to have to spend half a year in the G League, then we don't want you to have to come here. You have to want to come here and play. And I think that's important to see what's happening with this team. And you look at Poku. Remember when he went to the G League twice, and people were like, he'll never recover going back to the G League. Well, he's recovered, right? Dort played G League. He's recovered fine. You looked at Baisley played G League for a little while. I think he was hurt coming back from an injury. JRE last year, right? Trey Mann, I think, played G League last year as well. So, and Isaiah Joe played G League for 76ers. So this is what's happening. If you look throughout the league, there's very few guys that are being moved up into the NBA right away. And understanding that and seeing that, that's why this team and the way the organization is being run is so next level, is because it's giving these guys time to do so. And Jang, again, guys, we're going to see Jang out there, and he's going to be making a massive impact. And it's just a matter of saying, hey, Jang, G League's good for you right now. You're learning how to dominate against these guys, and he's played in the NBL over there in New Zealand. So it's that physical contact. And what did he do? Second half of the season, he dominated in the NBL. That's what we're trying to get with him. We're trying to get him to that point where he can come back in and dominate that second half, because Jang is a phenomenal player. He's going to be one of those guys that we're all going to look back at and be like, holy shit. I mean, the way that he shoots, the way that he plays defense, all that stuff, in its small doses that we've seen, but it all makes a huge difference when you're scouting a player out and recognizing who's going to be good and who's going to just need a lot of time. And he's one of those guys that he could need a year in the G League and then next year come back and just dominate the league in a whole new level.
For sure, bro. I'm going to put this on. We're in the holiday cheer. But anyway, so what I'm thinking about is with Poku, with this G League development. There you go, bro. Very nice. What I'm really impressed with when you start thinking about a player, I know people are watching the G League. I have trouble watching the G League. You're one of the people who gets a lot of good information from your scouting of the G League, which is dope. But I have to trust a couple of things, right? But when you watch a player like Isaiah Joe or Kenny Hustle, all these guys, the one thing that I feel like organizationally that gets probably the least amount of credit for how good of a job they do is our scouting department. There was no question about whether or not they wanted Isaiah Joe. They wanted Lou Dort, and they took their time to go out. I think they waited a day after the draft before they ended up meeting up with him. Their scouting is on another level where they don't even feel like they actually are competing with anybody, right? What they see, it's kind of like all of a sudden you get that message on your computer that says follow the white rabbit. And then next thing you know, you're sitting there meeting Morpheus, right? And it's you can take the blue pill or you can take the red pill. And it's kind of you're well, I'm not even sure what's going on yet. And it's well, this is what it means to work with the Thunder. It's going to change your life, but you're going to have to reinvent. And if you're a player like Isaiah Roby or Isaiah Joe or Darius Baisley, there can be a temptation to feel oh, well, I can do it my own way. I haven't proven it, right? Amarui is a guy that, kind of like Isaiah Roby, got a couple of minutes as a rookie and kind of blew out the rookie year in that way. And then coming back as a sophomore, if they're going to work with the Thunder, they have to agree that this path is going to be different. You know, there's going to be, you know, things like G League included, and there's going to be like these elements, and not everybody wants to take that path. There's like, you're going to have to admit that like you have no pride in this situation. Like, you're going to follow the plan. And we've seen it work with players who are on the Thunder who aren't on the Thunder. One of the guys that I love what I heard him say was Alex Caruso talking on the JJ Redick show about a meeting he had with the G League when he was on the Thunder's G League. And Sam Presti sat down with all the players and he's like, I'll answer any questions you have for as long as you guys have questions. And he sat there for a couple hours answering questions. And for Caruso, being able to pick Presti's mind gave him a little bit of that edge to understand like what NBA teams were looking for with players in the G League and how he could move them up. And yeah, so Presti gets a lot of credit. He deserves a lot of credit. But our scouting department doesn't all the time get as much credit as they deserve. And so you got to give them a shout out because their ability to identify talent and then not really, you know, wonder what the other people think of this talent, right? And whether or not they're competing. It's like, do they believe in their own assessment and then they go for it? And that's admirable.
Yeah, and I go back to these other times that Sam Presti's gone out and got a free agent. Like, I mean, let's just put it out there. Paul George talks about it all the time. You know, like, I don't think he would have came to the Thunder if it wasn't for Sam Presti showing up at his door at exactly midnight.
Paul George, right. We traded for him, but then we stuck with him, I think, because that big giant party, right? Remember that party?
Yeah, but that was the thing, though, is that, like, Paul George, like, Sam Presti went to Paul George to get that contract. Like,
yeah.
He recognized that, like, the future was all about this because he saw not only, like, he probably looked at it and said, we'll have Paul George for a couple of years, and then it's time to move on. You know? Like, he's probably already thought about that. But the reality was it wasn't even going to last. I mean, that year was the last year. That was it. You know, that year you got him signed the contract. That year was it because it was the following year that it all got traded out. And you look at it, and Sam Presti recognized that in order for this team to be okay, because Russell Westbrook wasn't going to bring in that type of a load in return. Just wasn't. There's just no way that Westbrook was going to be able to bring in, 4 draft picks and a young asset like that. There's only one player on that team that was going to do that, and that was Paul George. And he recognized that way before anything else. And that's what, to me, is the foresight. And yes, we've got great scouting team out there and getting all those free agents that we needed when we need them. We still have Mike Muscala on the squad, but it's those scouts that sit up and say, Sam Presti, this is the person you go to. This is the person we need. This is, like Sam Presti sees it all himself, but the way that he relies on the people that are around him is truly spectacular, and he trusts them. And I think that's one of the greatest things about an organization is that when you're seeing, whether it's a company and a CEO that sits down with his staff and says, hey guys, what is it going to take for you guys to be successful? What do you guys need? And then doing it, and then sitting back and saying, which players do you guys think we should get? Let's make a video. Let's do this. Now, Sam Presti makes the decisions, right? But if you don't think that he's leaning very heavily on our scout team, then you just don't know what's happening inside this organization, because they trust each other. It's not just from the bottom up. It's from the top to the bottom. Is the trust level on this organization so next level that we're all sitting back and we're all sitting, okay. And it changed. Let me just say why it changed. Is after KD left, Mark, right? Everybody's sitting there and saying, Sam Presti doesn't treat these players right because of the little things that KD said.
I remember these things.
Guess what? Sam Presti said, with all due respect, fuck you guys.
Right.
That
because was a quote.
And I have never, ever seen how an organization's been able to turn it around like this, because he has. Now, people are looking in and saying, holy shit, look at KD. KD just spent 2.5 minutes talking about the Oklahoma City Thunder and what they're doing.
Yeah, on the podcast, dude.
On the podcast, right?
Stuff,
like,
yeah.
This is for real, guys. This isn't like little chump change. Everybody's sitting there going, holy fucking shit. What Sam Presti just did is probably the biggest heist in the history of the NBA. And now we're all sitting there, and people are starting to say that Shea's mid-game reminds them of Michael Jordan's and Kobe Bryant's. And you know what Shea's saying? Kobe Bryant's the best player ever in the league.
Yeah, I saw that.
And you say, whoa. Well, let me just tell you, why is Shea saying that? It's because he idolizes Kobe. He was the player that he watched when he was growing up. And when you say, oh, well, no, let me just say, if you're looking at Shea and saying, would you rather be like Kobe or would you rather be like Michael? And he's saying, I would rather be like Kobe. Let the man fucking be, guys.
Yeah.
Because guess what?
He's his own man.
He's going to do what he's going to do.
Yeah. Yeah, we're from different, like, born at different times, right? So that matters a lot. I mean, I was born 85, so there, now everybody knows my age. But then, you know, shit happens, right? So you start thinking, like, this guy's the greatest, this guy's the greatest. You know, if you were born 10 years prior to me, you probably think, you know, Wilt, Kareem, one of those guys is the greatest. And it's all, you get into that, like, top 5, 10 players of all time. You know, it's all about the generation, you know, and then you start playing that game of like, okay, take this guy and put him in that generation. And then how effective would he be? And it's just like, you never get anywhere when you do that, but it sure is fun whenever you have it on the video games, right? And you can bust out those old generations, but it's been a long time since I've played any basketball games at all. But anyway, bro, let's wrap this shit up, dude, because obviously we're hyped. We're hyped. We're really hyped. This has been a special season. I was talking to my parents a little bit. I was like, yeah, this Thunder year has been really special. And I could tell they weren't ready, you know, to hear why it was special. So I just let it drop. But it made me really start appreciating everybody listening. Because in the end, we knew that it was worth it to start up a podcast and begin this process of talking about what we're witnessing, because there was going to be a lot of things. And as much as all of our friends love sports, nobody loves the Thunder as much as the people who are watching and listening to this podcast, because we know you want to remember all the little things. It's not always going to be good, and good. I mean, that's our parents and our grandparents probably are like, well, I'll pay attention when things are good, right? And that's fair. But some of us want to be like, hey, we remember this transition that Poku made from year 2 to year 3. We remember this transition the team made when all of a sudden Isaiah Joe showed up, right? That's how when all of a sudden we're watching in the playoffs and a guy comes off the bench, you know, puts up 20 and leads us to a win, and people are like, I've never heard of him. It's like, well, if you were watching, you would know, but that's okay, because that's the reward that we're all in it for. And I just appreciate having a place where we can talk about these things, and I know people care about them just as much as us, because in the end, like, this is the story. This is our story of our path to success, the Thunder in this generation.
Hell yeah, man. Hell yeah. And we're looking at this team in such a way that we're starting to realize that there's no longer this moment of when this team's going to be good. There's no longer this moment of how good this team's going to be. If the other superstars in the NBA are already talking about how good this team's going to be, then we all know what's happening.
Right.
We all seen what happened when Sam Presti had this last time. He built a championship caliber team that never is able to get to it. Because why? Because if you look at our bench and what we were able to do with the bench, we didn't have what we needed to go deep into those playoffs. We relied too heavily on the starters, and we got to, you know, game 6 or game 7, it got to that point where like everybody's just worn down. It didn't matter if we had a 2-game lead. And we're looking at this, and now we're starting to realize that the way that Sam Presti has designed this team is not just for like a short, you know, spout into the playoffs. It's for longevity. And that's what's the most exciting thing, is that we got a top 5 defense. We got a top 15 offense. You know, like, this is what's happened. Like, the way that we play this game is so unique that even every announcer that we watch has so much to say about it, because they're like, this is crazy. Like, this team in a couple of years is going to be so damn good, it's not even going to be funny. Everybody else is going to be left in the dust. And everybody else is, when they're left in the dust, are going to be sitting there going, how do we draw the lines? Because you look at teams like the Detroit Pistons, and they had year after year after year to try to rebuild, and they didn't. You look at teams like the Hornets, man, year after year, and they didn't. You look at the Thunder, and we went through 2 years without making the playoffs. Yeah, they were kind of shitty years to watch the Thunder, but guess what? They were fun.
Yeah, we got 20 wins each year. You know, we saw massive improvements. So as much as they were, there were stretches of those that were some of the most difficult periods of basketball any Thunder fan has ever had to witness, period. You know what I mean? Like,
man,
we still, like, there. You don't have to look very hard to look at the benefits and the rewards that we reaped from that, because the same players that were out there taking it on the chin are now landing punches.
Man, and just remember, guys, grab your balls, give them a nice great tug, and recognize this is the moment, the Oklahoma City Thunder, and this is the season the Oklahoma City Thunder are going to do some great things. Because you can sit there and be left in the dust and say, I was wrong. I should have watched this team halfway. It would be the first part of the year. But if you're listening to our podcast, you're watching the team consistently, because that's what you are. You're a super fan like us.
Yeah, if you're listening, if you're watching, dude, we keep getting more and more subscribers. I want to say thank you to everybody who keeps subscribing.
Thank you, guys.
We're going to throw a party for you guys soon, for sure.
Yes.
And we have a special way we want to say thank you, but we're going to kind of leave some of it under the wraps. But I'd like to freshen up our new intro, and I think I'm going to pay a professional to help us out with that, and see what type of vibes we end up with. We'll see. So that's why I feel like I'm wearing some jingle bells right now, because I'm feeling like we should give everybody who listens a little reward for sticking with us through the early days, and maybe some professional quality beats will be what we need, bro. So
yeah,
stick with us.
I'm all down.
It'll be fun. It'll be crazy. All right. We love you guys. We hope that you enjoyed all that food, and hopefully you're ready for Christmas, because this shit is gonna be happening fast. So stick with us, man. We look at Christmas as that moment where we're gonna be really the first time that we take, an assessment of the team and say, like, what do we expect going forward? We just promised ourselves we were gonna wait till then. Who knows? We might go on a little winning streak before then and be past that 500 mark. But stick with us, because that's all we do. We speculate wildly.
Roll the dice, baby.
We love you. We'll see you soon.